Recently on the channel I've been talking about Doom levels that I find interesting, unique or fun to talk about. Mount Erebus, Downtown, Nirvana. Doom is nothing if not filled with levels that split opinions and elicit a reaction. I think that's a testament to how good the games are. If I talk about these controversial levels though, there's one in Ultimate Doom Shores of Hell that I really need to bring into the discussion. A level which has brought many players to anguished cries, groans of horror, and also tricked many of its devious moments. You already know what I'm talking about, but it's E2M6 Halls of the Damned. Halls of the Damned happens to be Sandy Peterson's first map that he designed for Ultimate Doom. For some, it showcases the brilliance of his unconventional approach to Doom level design, an outing peppered with traps, visually diverse locales, and even the odd meme moment. For others though, Halls of the Damned is a labyrinth which torments, disorientates, and feels like a level lacking in flow or general direction. Alongside E3M6 Mount Erebus, Halls of the Damned is probably the least linearly designed outing in Ultimate Doom. Instead of pushing the player in one direction, collecting keys as they go, the player is afforded the chance to collect keys in any order they choose. The only requirement is that all three must be collected in order to leave the level. This means that the big set piece moments of the level can either be faced straight away or left to the last thing the player experiences. This choice is a huge one as it can radically alter how a player perceives the level. The red key is hidden in the bowels of a darkened maze, plenty of monsters skulking around in the shadows waiting to strike out. The yellow key is hidden off the beaten path, guarded by cacodemons in a tight spot. The blue key meanwhile sits near the level's start but is guarded by pinkies whose ambush has brought many players to an early death. The level itself also heavily leans into the cramped motif. The passageways and corridors are fairly small, forcing the player into encounters and to deal with enemies or be blocked as they attempt to backtrack. On top of this, the level is layered with traps. Not just pinky traps, but most of the traps in this level feature at least one Baron of Hell, usually accompanied by a troop of meatbags there to cause more chaos. I think this is where the level really loses a lot of people. Peterson tries to make each of the areas in the level feel unique, but they all share that trend of monster closets opening up and unleashing a horde of enemies. As said earlier, a lot of these passageways are narrow and cramped, meaning that the player is forced to deal with these enemies. Attempting to run past them only delays the assault, usually to the detriment of the player. These encounters feel a lot different to a lot of the outings in previous levels. There aren't any huge spaces for the player to take down enemies, just corridors and cramped spaces. On top of this, some of the rooms in this one are outright mean to the player. The room with the chain gun not only unleashes lost souls and enemies on the player, it also has a crusher activate when the player enters the room, meaning the chances of the player dying on their first adventures through here are quite high. There's also the fake exit that is infamous among Doom players for being one of the first examples of expected norms in Doom being twisted. After grabbing the yellow key, players can stumble upon a yellow door marked as an exit and enter, only to discover it's a complete trap. Mean? Absolutely, I'd say so, but I can understand players struggling for ammo and health at this point in the level not being too pleased as hitting what they think is an exit switch sends them into an all-out brawl. To other players though, this level is hugely atmospheric. The opening of the level throws a lot at the player and grabbing the Berserk pack, usually a trusted item, drops the floor on the outdoor area and reveals pain floors. It's a mean level for sure, but it's one that, on first playthrough, packs more of an atmospheric punch. It's a level that's not afraid to lean into the more darker, atmospheric parts of Doom's level design. The use of lighting in the wooden area frustrates some as it obscures enemies, but for many others, it's a fun challenge that keeps players on their toes and offers up one of the scarier moments in classic Doom, a space where enemies can truly leap out of the player with no notice. I appreciate these levels because they offer a different experience and perspective on what a Doom level can be. Affording the player the choice of which order they want to play the leveling grants them the choice to freshen up their personal experience. If they know they died previously inside the dark maze, they also now know that they need to be well equipped to head in that direction, so it creates a stronger sense of the player learning the level and routing themselves through to find the most efficient way out of the level. I also have to say that this is one of the levels where the music choice legitimately increases the enjoyment of proceedings. Say what you want about the level, being married to this track only enhances the darker elements of this level, and it makes it feel all the more menacing as a result. Excellent choice all around on this one. Much like my previous video talking about Mount Erebus, it's a level that's designed to invoke a reaction from the player. It stands out to players in both good and bad ways, depending on what they prefer from their Doom experience. It's a level that doesn't hold its punches and is very punishing on players who are overzealous. Players who try to rush through this one and ignore enemies will be overwhelmed very quickly. It's a punishing, grueling affair, but it is coming towards the back end of the Shores of Hell, so players can't expect an easy time of it at this point. For me, I'd argue it's one of the better experiences in Ultimate Doom, definitely a standout in the Shores of Hell episode at least. It's a level that even when you know what's coming can still find ways to intrigue and challenge, which after 30 years is an impressive feat. Halls of the Damned is loved and hated in the community, but for me it's a level that always delivers the goods. It's an interesting Doom level that challenges the player in unique ways that they haven't been up to this point. Every player probably has a different way how they approach this level, so it's going to be interesting to hear how you do so in the comments. I know that a lot of people don't love this level, and I get why that is, but at the same time I feel like this is one of the more experimental levels in Ultimate Doom. The opening section here is pretty nasty. If you're pistol starting, you really need to be very clever with how you use the rocket launcher and the shotgun that you're given. Luckily, if you're smart and you're careful with how you shoot your weapons, you're able to get out of that space pretty easily. This space here, it's pretty interesting because we don't actually get to see much of it. Once we step up to grab the Berserk Pack, the whole floor disappears. I kind of loved this when I was a kid, because it felt like the level was changing around my actions and it felt like I was being punished by the level for, you know, just doing things, which sometimes is pretty fun. As we head into the base section here, there's plenty of choice in the direction we can go. We can go down here, you can go into the dark maze there, you can head inside this door and head towards the yellow key, or you can step over here and grab the blue key. Now you can see there, if I'd gone to pick up the blue key, all of these pinkies and imps would have come around the corner and ambushed me. This is one of the hallmarks of this level, monster closets galore, and I think when people talk about monster closets in Doom, this is the level that I think a lot of people picture in their minds. There's just so many traps in this level, and I'll grab that chainsaw there because it's very useful. One of the things as well with this level, there are choices in how you approach things. That switch, for example, opens up those closets early, so you don't have to actually trip them if you don't want to. Now, this is an optional room. You don't actually need to come in here, but if you want to make things a lot easier for yourself later on, I do recommend coming in here to clear out the Lost Soul and the Cacodemons, because you can see that there's light amplification goggles there, and that'll make going through this dark maze here a lot easier. I think a lot of people, when they say they don't like this level, it's because it's designed in a way that if you try to rush through it like a normal Doom level, you get punished, you get obliterated by the level design, because there's enemies that can jump you from all corners, there's lots of traps, and it's not designed in a way that encourages people to move quickly through the levels. As you can see here, we've come down this very long and narrow corridor into these very sort of small rooms. And the thing is, once we step inside here, the Crusher's going to come down there. It basically means that we kind of have to deal with what's inside this room here. And you can see this is a very interesting little encounter. The Lost Souls can cause a lot of damage if you don't have any armor, so it's worth keeping that in mind. But this level does have an overabundance, I'd say, of light amplification goggles, so you should never feel like you're truly being left to wander in the dark. I think there's more in this level than there are in any other Shores of Hell level, to be honest. There's just that many in this level. Here's another room that's a bit of a trap. The thing with this one is that if you don't get out of the room before the trap springs, then you're in for a bit of a nasty time, because again, Lost Souls tend to be a bit of a pain in confined spaces like this, because they tend to sort of come at you very quickly. But again, it's another room filled with monster closets, and like I said at the start of the level, I think that the abundance of them in this level is one of the reasons why some people do not like it, because you're constantly having to tread on eggshells for fear of opening up yet more monster closets. And you'll see that in a second when we grab the yellow key here. We're going to deal with this Cacodemon, but as soon as we step back outside, we're going to have to deal with yet more monster closets. And there's another light amplification goggles. Those are the third ones in the level so far. The thing for me is that a lot of these traps They can be avoided if you're fast enough. So if you know what you're doing, it's very easy to just sort of run out of this space, because technically outside of the room with the yellow key there, you don't actually need to do any exploration here. You can just be in and out. Now, this is the secret exit. This is pretty infamous in Doom circles. I think this is the first time a lot of players felt that the game designers could do a gotcha like to this scale, because obviously up to this point, exit signs have meant safety. You know, there's usually a monster behind them, but it doesn't mean, you know, danger. But this is the first time where that gets inverted, and I'm kind of glad that they did it. I feel that, you know, if they hadn't done it, wow, 1% health, jeez. I feel if they hadn't done it in Ultimate Doom, it would have felt like a wasted opportunity. And again, I think a lot of players were probably not expecting this, although if they'd figured out that like they were picking up other keys and then the exit was just here with the yellow key, I'm pretty sure smart players would have worked out something was amiss here. But there is a reward for doing this, and that's something as well that I think this level does quite well. There's a lot of these spaces where the player is rewarded for, you know, indulging the traps. And again, I think that the way this level is designed, it's pretty obvious that if you know what you're doing, if you pay attention and you do a bit of exploration, the level gets a lot easier. If you try to gung-ho through this one, you're only asking for trouble, in my opinion. I also kind of like how the level is so varied in design, because it could be very easy to sort of use the green brick aesthetic that the Shores of Hell really likes leaning into, but I kind of like the idea that this is a tech base that's built into sort of some sort of cliffside. There's different sort of motifs, like this is a giant wooden area. We're just leaving the tech base area, and you've already seen the outdoor area. This level really throws a lot at the wall, and in my opinion, it pulls it off. And of course, as I mentioned at the start of the video, this was the first map that Peterson sat down and made for Doom 1. And I think you can kind of tell it's very flat. It's not really got the sort of, you know, levels that some of the other Doom levels have. But I think it makes up for that in just the way that the encounters all play out. This feels like a really interesting space to explore. Even if you don't like it, it's definitely interesting. Oh, okay. And this is another thing about this level. This Baron of Hell, I think it's actually come from near the start of this area, but because I grabbed the yellow key, obviously it's opened up a trap, and that Baron of Hell came in here. And that's the kind of thing this level does. It challenges the player. It makes the player kind of work. Oh wow, okay, yeah, so you can see that we've got enemies coming in from a trap that I've sprung elsewhere. And this is what I kind of like. If you're not paying attention, if you're not being careful, that kind of thing can just absolutely end your experience of this level and kick you back to the start. And that's interesting because I don't think that's happened before to me, so that's fun. Ultimately, this level is what you make of it. If you choose a particular path, it might be a bit easier for you and harder for another player who takes a different path. Some players may leave the blue key till last. I don't know many players that do that, but in particular with the yellow and the red keys, I think there's a discussion about which one is the best to go for first. Personally speaking, if I was doing a sort of harder run, I would probably come in here first because you get the plasma rifle in here, and the plasma rifle obviously very, very good. We like the plasma rifle. Don't want to go around that corner right now because going around that corner opens up a monster closet with a bunch of lost souls in it behind that wall there. I would rather deal with them when I've dealt with everything else in this space. But now that the light amplification goggles have worn off, you can see that this space makes good use of the darkness in Doom. There's a lot of variations in lighting, and I think it creates a very interesting space for an encounter. Of course, the roof and the floor same height. It does kind of have that slight feel of, you know, not being super interesting from that perspective, but given that we're kind of bathed in darkness here, I don't think that really matters. I think you can get away with that. Obviously, another light amplification goggle. Don't say this level doesn't give you enough to sort of get through it. When we come around this corner, it opens up this little monster closet here. I don't usually activate that unless I really want to kill all the lost souls inside. It's kind of pointless. Now, what I will point out here is that it's pretty funny to me that this has never been fixed. So you can see here that there's a bunch of pinkies trapped here. And the funny thing is that once you kill the pinkies, it actually brings the Baron out from behind them. Theoretically, you don't need to deal with this Baron at all if you really don't fancy it. Ammo is also a thing on this level you've got to be very sort of conservative about if you're playing through from a pistol start, because it can get very tight. But overall, I really like this one. I think Halls of the Damned is one of the more expressive levels in Ultimate Doom, and while I get that some people don't like it, the level does have issues, and I can understand some people being frustrated with the lack of overall aesthetic, the mishmash of textures. It does feel very kind of thrown against the wall, everything, let's see what works and what doesn't work. But in my opinion, it's just a fun level, and in Ultimate Doom, when I'm playing through it, usually what I want is just a fun experience, and I can honestly say I've never been bored by Halls of the Damned, which is a lot more than I can say for other levels in Doom, where I have got frustrated, have got bored, and have been kind of just counting down the seconds until I can get to the level's end. But I'd love to hear what you think of Halls of the Damned. Do you think it's a good level? Do you think it's a bad level? Do you think I'm wrong? If you think I am, let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.